Module 7. The Secret Currency of Happy Relationships. Key lesson. Lust is longing, not fulfillment. What do most women look forward to and work hard to achieve for the first quarter of their life? It's often marriage, so it might surprise you to learn that statistics show the most likely time for a woman to become depressed is within a few months of getting married. A wedding is a beautiful thing. It's a gathering for everyone who loves you to celebrate with you. You have poured your time and energy into making it elegant and meaningful. You've dreamed of your wedding since you were a little girl. Then it's over. Regular life routines take center stage again. The letdown after the big event often leaves women feeling, let down. I need to tell you something counterintuitive. Keep an open mind because what I'm about to tell you may shock you. One of the most common times for people to become depressed is shortly after they have accomplished a big goal in their life. Depressed billionaires. Imagine having more money than you could possibly spend in your lifetime. That's what happened to many of the dot-com billionaires who sold their startup businesses and cashed out before the crash of the dot-com era. Finding themselves with more money than they needed, even if they lived lavish lifestyles and spent money on everything they wanted, just the interest on the money they had accumulated would probably be more than what they were spending. It sounds like a good problem to have, doesn't it? Yet the truth is, many of these suddenly wealthy and jobless billionaires began to feel depressed. Many of them experienced a flailing, aimless sensation that was in stark contrast to the intense effort they had put into building their dream business and working hard to sell it. It turns out, sipping drinks by the pool starts to get boring after a while. The famous motivational speaker Tony Robbins has described his own personal experience with this phenomenon. Early in his career, he set several seemingly impossible goals. Then he went after those goals with an insatiable appetite for the adventure. One of his goals was to buy a castle and live in it. Another of his goals was to earn so much money that he could retire before the age of 40 and relax at the beach with his family. He accomplished both of those goals. He actually purchased a hotel on an island in Tahiti where he and his family moved with the sole intention of chilling out and enjoying life. But after 2 months of sitting at the beach, he started to feel bored and unsatisfied. Being retired offered him no challenge. He missed the challenge of going after goals that felt meaningful. So he quit retirement and went back to work. He's happier now than ever, but he's learned his lesson about peak life experiences. As soon as you achieve some long-standing goal, it's kind of like you reached this peak, a high point in your life. But that's the most important time to reevaluate your goals, decide what's meaningful in your life, and start working on incremental progress toward a new set of goals. Otherwise, you end up feeling depressed, returning from a peak life experience. The trouble with getting what you want is that the momentum suddenly stops. If you don't find something to transfer your efforts toward, your energy and enthusiasm begin to fade quickly. When there's no forward momentum in your career, your relationship, or anything else, you tend to feel low energy, depressed, and unsatisfied. This is the universal human phenomenon, but as you might have guessed, this phenomenon is far more powerful for men than it is for women. The reason has to do with his testosterone-driven desire to go after goals and win. Bored with a great relationship. If momentum is so important to guys, does that mean even a perfect relationship will gradually start to lose interest for him? It's a painful question, but an important one to consider. Sadly, boredom with a great relationship often gets paired with the potential excitement of an affair. The seed of possibility is planted when he allows his mind to fantasize about what could happen if he allowed harmless flirtation to grow and mature into something more. Fortunately, the situation is not hopeless. Guys are not all pigs. For most of us, commitment and the genuine desire to make our partner happy will prevent us from straying from a great relationship. But is that the reason you want him to stick around? It seems like settling when you compare it to the raw power that momentum has for creating a relationship that flourishes forever. In a small way, you became one of my coaching clients when you purchased this course material, and I hold certain standards for my clients. It is my desire that each of my clients finds herself in a relationship with a man who is crazy about her. I want your guy to see you as the only one who will satisfy him. And to accomplish that, we need to build momentum into the fabric of your relationship. The solution. Never think of yourself as having arrived. Your relationship is always getting stronger or weaker. It never just stays the same. That may seem like bad news, but it's actually great news for those who embrace the beauty of forward momentum in a relationship. Men need incremental progress, no matter how small. We need to feel like we're working towards something that is worthwhile. That's what lights up the parts of our brain that release energy and make us feel happy and engaged in life. Whenever a job, a relationship, or anything else seems finished, it becomes unfulfilling. Should I play hard to get? You've probably heard of the play hard to get method for attracting a man. It is based on the idea of momentum. He feels like there is a challenge when he is pursuing you. While I'm not an advocate of that method in its purest form, this method does work in some circumstances for short periods of time. It works because of the way a challenge lights up his interest and engagement toward achieving the desired relationship goal. It gives the male mind something to go after. He experiences desire and a rush of adrenaline and pleasure when faced with the opportunity to go after a challenge. But I have something much better for you. Don't play hard to get. Instead, play hard together. Play hard towards shared relationship goals that are hard to get. So instead of being the person who is hard to get, you want to create shared relationship goals that the two of you work together to achieve, even though your goals are hard to get. Do you see how that works? If you make yourself the only target for the hard to get game, you are playing a game that will run out of juice very quickly. But if you work together to enrich each other's lives with never-ending opportunities to pursue happiness and life satisfaction, the possibilities become endless. Tiny progress is all it takes. Research shows that tiny progress is as powerful as huge breakthroughs in work satisfaction. The number one cause of job burnout? It's when you're not moving toward anything. It's torture. The new field of positive psychology has revealed the number one greatest secret of happiness. And it wasn't what people expected. Because researchers were looking for life circumstances that correlated with happiness. What did they find instead? Progress. People feel happiest when they are making tiny progress toward any goal they've decided is worth going after. Do you want to feel happier today? Then set some small goals and don't worry about achieving them. Just focus on making a little progress. The grass is always greener. The grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. This phenomenon of the human mind works against long-term relationships. But you can use this human quirk to your own advantage. Here's how. Talk with your partner about hopes and dreams for the future, both yours and his. Discuss aspirations that would give you more freedom, fun, and anything else you want. Why? Because the currency of happy relationships is progress. Make his future with you into the other side of the fence. You accomplish that by talking often about how to make the next date, next week, next month, or next year the best one yet. This will divert his wandering attention from other women and focus it instead on leaping to the other side of the fence, while holding your hand. Maximize each other's pleasure. What I'm about to tell you is extremely important. I don't want you to miss it. What I'm about to share is conceptual. If you don't understand the concept, you will miss out. Big time. The concept is this. The real key to building meaning and purpose into your relationship is making it your shared goal as a couple to maximize each other's pleasure. Now let me explain that further. We've talked a lot about fascination and the masculine instincts that drive your man. The key to trying those instincts to your own life is to get him to sink his teeth into a new challenge that is directly tied to the relationship you share. You see, most couples assume the point of being in a relationship is to make each other happy, but they never make that a conscious goal that they actually talk about. They never discuss it as a couple. This is where you are really going to shine from now on. You will no longer hold back when it comes to seeking pleasure. You will bring it up as a serious topic of conversation as many times as it takes until he realizes you are serious. You actually want him to admit all the big and small desires he has so that the two of you can work toward those desires consciously, on purpose, and as a couple. There will be no holding back. It will be an all-out race to have as much adventure, as much fun, and as much full life fulfillment as two humans can possibly achieve. Yes, this is for new relationships too. Before you start panicking, thinking this idea will only apply to married couples or those in long-term, committed relationships, I need to assure you otherwise. From the very first date, you can approach the entire relationship as an exercise in open communication about how to enhance each other's lives. You can activate his meaning and purpose triggers right from the start. But what if we don't want the same things? Stop pretending like you want the same things as everyone else. Stop pretending that what society thinks you should want is what you actually want. What makes you happy is going to be unique. Realizing that gives you the freedom to start figuring out what that is. When you do this together as a couple, dramatic improvements in your quality of life can take place in a very short period of time. You and your partner are not supposed to want the exact same things. Working as a team to make each other happy will involve a lot of taking turns and looking for synergistic ways to meet each other's needs. To illustrate this concept, I'd like to share an article I wrote on a related concept. This article uses a single date as an example of an opportunity to have fun with the process of trying to make each other happy. As you read this, remember that the actual activities are not the point. The real point is activating his sense of meaning, his drive to go after challenges, and be a provider of the things you need. If you can trigger those instincts to work in your favor of your relationship with him, momentum will be on your side. The perfect date. Are your dates beginning to feel a little stale and predictable? It happens. Dinner and a movie is exciting the first time you share it with someone new, but it can become ho-hum after a while. So what do you do to inject some energy and passion into your dates? I recommend you make a date out of the process of searching for the perfect date. Here's how you do it. Start with a conversation. You and your partner go out to dinner with one item on the agenda. You're going to engineer the most exciting, unforgettable date you can imagine. And I mean that. Let your imagination run wild. This is a brainstorming conversation. No idea is too outlandish. Don't worry about being realistic or sticking to a budget. If your perfect date would include a flight to Paris, that goes on the list. Silly things are okay too. Still kind of fond of those Friday nights in middle school you spent at the roller skating rink? Put that on the list. Don't be shy during the brainstorming session, and don't worry about sounding selfish. Even if there are things you want to do that you know your partner hates, list them. Later on, the two of you can work together to find creative compromises. The goal during this first conversation is to get it all out there. This is important because one of the things that causes stale dates is a narrow range of shared interests. We tend to think of dates as all-or-nothing adventures. He likes to go to NASCAR races, but you hate the noise. You like elegant restaurants, but he feels out of place. There's no way to mix the two, so you default to something you can both enjoy, like dinner and a movie. Sure, it's still fun, but it's far from either person's ideal date. In a way, the relationship ends up holding both of you back. No wonder people get nasty and start to stray. But there's a few secrets to getting over that hump. Here's the first. Sometimes it can be fun to do something the other person enjoys just because they enjoy it, even if you don't. That's why it's so important to have this brainstorming conversation. It gives you both an opportunity to see the other person's eyes light up as you discuss ideas, especially the unrealistic ones. My second secret for constructing the perfect date is obvious when you think about it, but a lot of couples miss it. You can do some things in small doses. Why not pair an activity he likes with something you'd enjoy, doing both on the same date? It might require a change of clothes halfway through the night, but that will only make it more fun. Which leads to my third secret. Get creative. Maybe the ideal dinner date would include a flight to Paris. Is there some other destination? Maybe one within driving distance that could also be romantic. Who knows? You might end up planning a whole weekend. There are no rules. Forget about being conventional. Think outside the box together and see what you can dream up. Finally, here's the last secret. This brainstorming and planning session we're talking about, it makes a surprisingly good date itself. That's right. Even as you and your guy plan out the perfect date, you'll be experiencing a magical evening together. Sneaky in a good way, huh? Your relationship is unique. It's 100% special, different from all others. Treat it that way. Take the time to plan out the perfect date with your partner and savor every minute of the experience, both in the planning and execution. If you do, stale, boring dates can be a thing of the past. Do you see the different mentality that emerges when you stop trying to conform and instead conspire with each other to increase happiness? That's what I love about this idea. The two of you intertwine your minds in a shared mission. That mission can become a primary source of meaning and purpose in his life. When that happens, your intimacy will dwarf that experienced by most other couples. And again, this works from the very beginning of a brand new relationship just as well as it works in the middle of an existing relationship. I know it's hard to see the full implications of the method I'm teaching you, but stop and think about it for just a moment. We are using the power of synergy. Each factor is powerful on its own, but when these factors are stacked on top of each other, the result is more than just additive. Instead, there is an exponential effect. In the 90s, before the health risks of this method were recognized, bodybuilders used something called the stack to shred off fat and get ripped in time for their bodybuilding contests. You see, bodybuilders don't stay thin year-round. They bulk up during the winter months, eating more calories than their bodies actually need to put on a lot of extra muscle. But that extra muscle comes with extra fat as well, which hides the muscle beneath it. When it's time for the bodybuilding season to start, they go on strict diets to lose as much fat as possible so their muscles really stand out when posing for the judges and audience. And here's a common way bodybuilders got an edge when trying to lose weight fast. They stacked together 3 supplements. ephedrine, aspirin, and caffeine. Ephedrine by itself speeds up the metabolism and lowers appetite. Caffeine by itself can increase the body's metabolism of fat and actually increase the percentage of energy that comes from the body's fat stores. But when you add caffeine and ephedrine together, it's more than just a 1+1 effect. There's a synergistic effect that causes the two to create 5 times the fat-burning effect. And for some reason, adding a small dose of aspirin to this makes this stack even more powerful and synergistic. The end result is something far more powerful than you would expect based on the power of any of the separate ingredients on their own. In the same way, we are stacking several components that have a powerful synergistic effect. We start with, number 1, the primal drives men have to feel powerful and capable of providing while doing something meaningful, the hero instinct. Those are the very same drives that many women fight against rather than use to their advantage. Number 2, then we add the power of momentum, which activates recurring surges of happiness that comes from making progress. Number 3, finally, we fold these two forces back in on the relationship itself. In the next module, I want to give you some specific examples to show you how to put the momentum method into action.